With the recent passing of Queen Elizabeth II, it's a powerful time to look back at the legacy that she's left, including some incredible leadership lessons that she has given us. I'm going to share with you what I think is the #1 leadership lesson we would all gain from and take it into our lives, whether we're thinking about our professional life as entrepreneurs or even just in our private life. Queen Elizabeth reigned from 1952 until 2022. For context, passenger aircraft for commercial flights didn't even really exist in 1952. The first prototypes were just being tested. The Chevy Corvette didn't even exist either. It was also just in its prototype phase. In fact, I think that it was the first ever Holiday Inn or something like that opened in 1952 in, I think, Tennessee. So we're talking about a vastly different time. In fact, if you think about 1952 compared to 2022, in 1952, I think it was less than 25% of women actually worked in the workforce. Think about how much growth and evolution has happened to 2022, where something like half to 3/4 of all women are working in the workforce. Think about race relations. I mean, at that time, it would still be another 12 years until 1964 in the United States when the Civil Rights Act would be abolished. So think about race relations and how much they've developed. And then think about same-sex marriage in 1952 until 2022. Massive changes with it becoming legalized in many developed parts of the world. The advice that the Queen shares publicly through her various Christmas messages and whatnot is sitting on top of 70 years of reign in an ever-changing world. Now, I certainly acknowledge that she's had her own challenges and the family has had dark spots, whether it's the passing of Diana under cloudy circumstances or Prince Andrew and all of the kind of dark parts of that. And then even more recently, the issues with Henry and Meghan and some of the allegations are pretty dark. You know, decades will probably go by before we start to really find out what was fact and what was fiction. Nonetheless, I think this is an appropriate time to honor some of the brighter spots given her recent passing. I was really blown away when I saw her 2018 Christmas address that she filmed and shared on Christmas Day. I really appreciated the moment that she shared about tribalism. She doesn't mean native tribes when she was talking about tribalism. She was talking about that social dynamic where people will get entrenched into their views, kind of creating their own proverbial tribes, and then it's about warring with one another. She was talking about that in 2018, and she was talking about the world becoming more and more tribalized. Here we sit now in 2022. We've had the coronavirus pandemic, which created even more division in the world, and certainly with many of the developments in politics over the last 5-10 years, it's become so much more radicalized. And so I think that the top leadership lesson that I take away from the Queen's time is captured in this statement from her 2018 Christmas address.
And a common desire to live in a better, more peaceful world. Even with the most deeply held differences, treating the other person with respect and as a fellow human being is always a good first step towards greater understanding.
I think this is a timeless and essential message, more important, more urgent now than at any other point in human history. When we have people who dig in their heels and are unwilling to hear the other side's version, there's no room for empathy, there's no room for understanding. And we go from a place of co-creation to a place of domination and submission, winning and losing, being right, being wrong. At this time in the world where change happens very quickly, and we have major issues facing us today, a very connected world with interrelated banking systems and stock markets and international trade and diseases spreading around the world because of all the travel that we now do around the globe, and on and on and on. It is going to take cooperation. It is going to take an interdependence and an interrelatedness for really the human race to get past some of the challenges of the day. Do I believe that we as a humanity can get through it? Absolutely yes. There's no question in my mind that we as a human race can certainly make it through any challenge if we are all rowing in the same direction or even approximately in the same direction. I think that progress requires us to be moving forward. When we're spending all that time, energy, and attention though, staring at each other and fighting and smashing heads back and forth, that is really preventing putting our efforts side by side and moving forward. The first step in all of that is exactly what the Queen shared in her 2018 Christmas address, is viewing the other person as a real human, even if they have completely different views than us. On top of that, once we view the other person as a real human being, is to then take a look at what is it that is important to them. There's a really fantastic book called Nonviolent Communication. And in it, the author, a doctor, talks about empathy. And oftentimes, as soon as we understand the other person's side, and likewise, once we feel understood, suddenly a lot of the tension just kind of like melts away. It takes the pressure out of a situation. And we can move from the amygdala, which is the fight or flight center of our brain, into our frontal cortex, which is the center responsible for creativity and problem solving. The brain literally can only be in one of those centers or the other. It can't be in both centers at the same time. And that's part of evolution. If there's a bear running after you, you don't want to be like, 60% in your amygdala fighting and flighting and 40% trying to be creative and thinking about new solutions. No. This is life or death. The body has evolved to say, slamming all the way 100% into fight or flight, let's go. And so when we have that kind of visceral, blood pumping experience of anger, frustration, of revenge, goodness gracious, that's a lot of energy and passion and lost sleep at night that is put towards fighting or running. It's not being put towards creativity and problem solving and cooperation. We need to learn more and more to become better listeners so that we can hold space, get to know what is happening for that real human being on the other side, so that we can find out, hey, what's our common ground? What is it that each of us is trying to accomplish, and how can we best get to the other side in like a civilized kind of way? When we're not civilized, when we're wild and clashing and calling each other names, whether that's in world politics or even just between strangers on the street, we are stuck in the amygdala. We are not in the frontal cortex, and we're not creating new solutions. As a tribute to the Queen and her reign and the positive, great parts of her 7 years in power, I think that we would all do very, very well to remember what she had to share with us about remembering the other as a real human being. I acknowledge that sometimes that is harder done than said, or should I say it's easier said than done. I think though that a regular reminder of what really moves the needle in terms of building a world that we all love and we can all coexist in, I think that this is a crucial message. My name is Tim Francis. I'm an entrepreneur. I'm a Canadian. I'm based in Austin, Texas, and I'm passionate about high performance and entrepreneurship. If you found this to be helpful, I recommend that you like this video so that more of my content can come your way in the future, and maybe even consider subscribing. And if you have really enjoyed what you've seen from me, all I ask is that you do continue to follow my work. Consider heading over to realtimfrancis.com, and there you can subscribe to my email newsletter. Thank you so much.